Hey everybody, David Gordon here from TheaterMania with Mr. Brad Oscar, star of Mrs. Doubtfire, Something Rotten, The Producers, Broadway Bounty Hunter. What am I leaving out? What am I forgetting?
Oh gosh. Well, what else? Jekyll and Hyde.
Jekyll and Hyde.
4 years in Jekyll and Hyde, baby.
How do you, how many weddings did you hear This Is the Moment played at over the course of that 4 years?
Exactly. Oh, please. And the karaoke is the best.
How are you doing, Brett?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm hanging in. How about you?
No, we're fine. You know, status quo. Knock on wood.
Yep, exactly.
You're upstate. You were saying?
Yes, I'm upstate. I'm out of the city with our goddaughter and her folks. So that's been good because we have air and space, and so that's been lovely. I do miss home, of course, and we'll be back in the city in a couple weeks. And readjust to whatever that will be.
Yeah.
But it has been a lovely just sort of escape up here and spend time with our 4.5-year-old goddaughter.
Oh,
great. Who we see because they live in the city, but we don't see them
24/7. Right.
So yeah, mostly that's been amazing. Yeah.
How far into the Mrs. Doubtfire process? You were in previews when theater.
Yeah, we had done 3 previews. Yes, and we were in rehearsal on that Thursday during the day. When we heard that the league was meeting and with the city and everything was starting to go down, didn't necessarily think that it would happen at 5 o'clock that day.
Right.
But although I must say the night before we were doing the show Wednesday night and I got an alert that the NBA had suspended the season. That I was like, we're not long for this world in that way, and in the way that we needed to be responsible and step up, and it was going to start to be very irresponsible to continue to bring people together like that. So yeah, but then bing bang boom, we were in rehearsal, literally working on some new dialogue. I had new dialogue that day that I could not tell you what it was if you paid me now, right? That I was learning his performance. Right. Nothing major, but anyway, we were still actively working, making the show even better than I think it already is. And yeah, and they were like, all right, as of 5 o'clock, Broadway shut down, the theater will be closed, for all intents and purposes, get what you need, but you can leave your stuff. We all, all our stuff, there sit my Disneyland Haunted Mansion toys in the dressing room, gathering dust and wondering where the hell I am.
Wait, are you a Disney freak also?
Yeah, to an extent, Disney villains and and that Haunted Mansion and couple other things. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So am I. What kind of adjusting did it take? You're on Broadway for 3 nights and then you're.
Yeah. No. Well, what's weird is it's the most exciting part of the process because we had been out of town. We had done our Seattle tryout. That had gone well. We had worked on the show there. We still knew there was work to be done. We went back into rehearsal in New York in February. We did that work.
Yeah.
Show was, as I said, I think the show was even better. And I think it's a really good, strong piece. So anyway, so it's the most exciting part. You're finally getting in front of New York audiences, which is terrifying and wonderful. You're still working to work out the kinks and, see how the new stuff is playing. No one has passed judgment yet. As far as when judgment
haven't seen it.
Exactly. So everything is possible, and you believe wholeheartedly, especially when you truly believe, when you're not just drinking the Kool-Aid, because we all have, we all have to go along for the ride there and support what you do. But obviously, it's much easier to do a show that you believe in and feel very passionately about. So it was. Yeah, it was crazy. It was just, like record scratch. And all of a sudden the next day you're in suspended animation and at that point we were told 4 weeks. We were, they were looking at least 4 weeks. And so, you had some sense of, well, maybe that'll happen. But then, of course, as things played out soon after, we realized it would be longer. So, yeah. So we'll see.
Viewers at home, if you have questions for Brad, pop them in the comments. We'll get to them over the course of the next half hour. What I want to talk about John O'Farrell and the Kirkpatrick brothers who wrote Mrs. Doubtfire, the musical, and also wrote Something Rotten.
Yeah.
Have you been involved with Mrs. Doubtfire from the beginning? Were they writing this part for you, or did you come in?
No. Wouldn't that be nice? No. No, I had actually not been a part of the process. They had done at least a reading or 2. Another actor, a very talented and funny man named Mario Cantone, had played the role, and I'm sure Mario was brilliant. Mario passed for, I still owe him a big bouquet of flowers or chocolates or something. And they auditioned to fill the role. So I did go in and audition. I was not part of the process like I had been with Something Rotten, ironically.
Right.
Something that also came out of nowhere, as far as just Casey Nicholaw getting in touch and saying, we're reading through this crazy, wonderful piece, and would you like to read Nostradamus? And I said, sure, I will. Yeah, count me in. And one thing led to another, and the next thing you know, yeah. But no, Doubtfire, I joined, literally when we rehearsed to go to Seattle.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say to you, you must. Is there like a shorthand when they're at least rewriting and fixing stuff now?
I mean, it's great to be back in the room with them because they're funny, talented guys, and they've written an entirely, different kind of musical comedy, if you will. And this being an adaptation, of course, where Something Rotten was totally original.
Yeah.
But I think they've done an outstanding job in finding the heart in the piece, telling the story. We're not futzing too much with a good thing. I know you're a fan of the movie. The movie's great. We would be foolish to try to tell the story in a different way, or let's update it in a way that wouldn't make sense, or whatever it might be. And so I think they found a lovely way to musicalize the piece and be true to what it's about. But as we know, because music brings so much more emotion to the table and excitement, if you will, they've found those places in the story that sing. And so it's great to be back with them. And also, it's my first time working with Jerry Zaks.
The genius.
I went into Adam's Family, so I worked with him for like a week or two. When you go into a show been running, you're usually put in by the resident director, and then Jerry or whoever originally comes along and make sure everyone's doing what they should be doing or whatever. And but this was from the beginning. To be in the room and rehearse this piece from the ground up with him was amazing, and he really is. He's a master, and it's been wonderful.
I was going to say, I've been doing this for nearly 10 years now, and the Mrs. Doubtfire press event was the first press event where I'm actively sitting there crying while you guys are performing, while Rob McClure is singing, his big "Don't Take My Kids Away From Me" song.
Yeah.
And I feel like the show is going to really surprise people with how emotional it gets, alongside all the great comedy.
Right. I don't because the image of Mrs. Doubtfire, that character, and the way Robin Williams portrayed him and filled that and created that, because that is so iconic, we forget what the story is really about and what is dressed as Mrs. Doubtfire. And it's about a man who will do anything to be with his kids. He loves his kids, and he and his wife are getting a divorce, and it's an issue and blah blah blah. But yeah, at the end of the day, the story is about family and what you do to maintain and repair and nurture those ties, and also what it means to be a family, that there are so many different kinds of families, and that is more relevant now than ever and more resonant. So I mean, again, another reason why I feel like, I know people are quick to say, oh, another musical based on a movie, why do we keep having to have well, sure, we've always looked for source material in the theater. It comes from novels or films or whatever it might be. But if the material can lend itself, if these characters can sing, then oftentimes you're glad you did. And I believe this is one of those times. We've all seen musicals based on films that didn't necessarily need to happen. It just didn't enlighten the material. It didn't elevate it, whatever. I think these characters sing, and I think what we've done is take this really brilliant, hilarious, and heartfelt film and brought all that with us, and then added this whole other layer of stuff. And so ideally, it's that much more satisfying, especially if you're a fan of the piece, of the film.
Yeah.
I hope.
Zach Albuck, watching at home, wants to know, how is it working with J. Harrison G. as your stage husband?
Well, I had never met J. Harrison G. I had known of Jay, but we had never met. And we had a few days of rehearsal, just Jay and I, initially going over some of our music before we were rehearsing the rest of the company and doing scene work or whatever.
Yeah.
So sort of nice because I got to meet him. Literally, it was me and him and the music director, and Jerry was around a little bit in pre-pro, but anyway, such a sweet guy. Really, right away, I felt like, okay, because we are playing husbands, and so we want that to be believable, and there's nothing harder than having to, play opposite someone you're supposed to love and care for, and you're just not crazy about them. But no, I knew early on that wasn't going to be a problem. And one of the first things that Jerry said to us, ironically, when we all met that day, in that first day, he said, I hope you'll love each other. It's going to be one but all I need is to believe that you two love each other more than anything in the world. And I thought, well, okay, that's a beautiful place to just have to arrive at. And I had no knowing and we share a dressing room, so you really get to know someone, because day in and day out, as far as that life in Seattle and being out of town. And I adore him. I think he's so talented. Believe me, you're going to see plenty of J. Harrison G in the years to come, I'm sure, doing a lot more than he gets to do here. But wow, what he gets to do here. And we look fabulous, because in my mind's eye, my husband, Andre, the character J. He dresses both of us. So wait till you see his outfits, and then you'll see some of the residual effect on me. But he wears it much better. And he's a terrific guy. I miss him very much. Again, I miss my family. I miss that Doubtfire family.
Yeah. No, sure. I want to talk about Something Rotten, because that show is still.
I should make a good joke here, like what, Nick and Nora?
Right. Yeah.
Get it?
Like, Something Rotten and the producers, to me, are just like the pinnacle of Broadway musical comedy. And I'm sure Mrs. Doubtfire will be added to that list once it gets back up and running and we can all see it. But when it came to Something Rotten, was there any indication early on that your big number, your musical number, was going to be the thing that like stops the show, like the thing that every like kid dreams about, like standing ovations and all that?
No, you can't. No. First of all, I remember when we first did, the read through, where we sat literally behind, music stands and read and sang the piece. We were not on our feet or whatever. And, I thought, wow, what a terrific, oh my God, it's just a joyous 10-minute celebration of the American musical comedy. I also was terrified that the character was really going to have to dance, that Casey was going to want someone in the role who would be this little crazy old man and then boom, strip off whatever, or just become this vicious dancer, And there are character men who can dance a hell of a lot better than I can. So fortunately, that didn't happen. And Casey was more than generous in choreographing that number as well. I will be forever grateful for him working with and shaping it on me in that way. Just so blessed, so ridiculous. But I was afraid that the number was so meta, was so like, look at us making fun of music, or look at us celebrating, or look at us doing Annie or Chicago. And in a way, has that been done too much? The producers, some of the best jokes in the producers are references to other music. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. So I was afraid that 20 years later, maybe that had run its course, and a number that was that was literally all about that in many ways, and describing, of course, the joy of what a musical is. Anyway, I was afraid that the reaction would be more like, oh, been there, done that, having no idea what it actually looked like, because you can't when you're up there doing it. We did the group sales presentation at the Little Schubert on 42nd Street, which was fun because it was it's a legitimate theater. So and sometimes you do them in the rehearsal room, or you do them at a hotel or whatever. So no, this was nice. We were on stage, in our street clothes, but we did that number. And I don't know how the Little Schubert seats, what? Well, we know it's less than 500 because it's
right. I think it's literally like $4.99.
Exactly. And it was full. The reaction was in that space was overwhelming. We were like, wow. And, and I always tried to justify it. I thought, well, of course they loved it. They're theater people. They're group sales. They love musicals. Why shouldn't they? And then we did the invited dress rehearsal, and they went bananas and stood up and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, well, sure, it's the invited dress rehearsal. It's all our friends. Da 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 da. So then we did the first preview, and and it kept happening. And Brian, Darcy, James, and I would stand there at the button. All of us, this amazing ensemble that, believe me, truly truly made that number what it was. And we would all just stand there, and because we broke the applause. Oftentimes, the conductor will come in with the music because you're moving on. We had a button to the number, so we had to wait for the applause to die down for Brian or I to say the next line. I don't even remember what was next. So it was sort of on us. Never ask an actor to break an applause break.
Right.
But I like to think that we did not milk it, believe me. But anyway, it was overwhelming. And for a while we had that overwhelming, like, they would stand. I have never in my life, I don't know that I've ever been a part of, something. I'm sure it's happened once or twice, but anyway, it was very, very special, and it's not lost on me because, again, I am such a fan of the musical. I grew up seeing shows, try out in DC and coming up to the city and seeing shows. So I love, musical theater is a true love of mine, and so to do a number like that, to be able to be in a number like that, and originate something again with those people, with Brian, who I can't say enough about, and that company, is very special. And what it means to kids, because, again, cast albums were such a part of my, my maturation, my education. So, the fact that now they're listening to us do that is crazy, wonderful.
That's a pretty good segue into a viewer question from Dakota Allison. Was there one particular show that you saw when you were young that made you want to do theater?
Well, I remember my parents took me to see the musical Raisin, which is a musical of Raisin in the Sun, which DC. Sorry?
That's a real deep cut. You don't hear many people mentioning Raisin.
No, I love Raisin. Just recommended it. I did like a Playbill Twitter, your favorite cast album. I'm like, listen to Raisin. Nobody really knows Raisin. I mean, I don't know if it's of its time or whatever, but I think it's a really good musicalization of an amazing, extraordinary masterpiece of a play. But it's also one of the first shows that and those shows resonate. Those shows speak. Mame is another one, because I got to see Angela Lansbury do Mame at a very young age on tour when they used to tour their shows. But the reason Raisin sticks out is because in the cast of Raisin, there's a little boy in the company, and that young man was played by Ralph Carter, who later went on to be the youngest son on Good Times. Mm-hmm. And my parents arranged for us to go backstage afterwards to meet him. I guess maybe him specifically. I don't know, whatever. But I remember being so overwhelmed at the idea that another child of a similar age was doing this. Mm-hmm. I don't know if obviously professionally didn't mean anything to me at the time, and I remember this overwhelming sense of need and want and passion and whatever that is that I, can still remember. And this had to be 1973-ish, I think. So I'm like 8 or 9, maybe. Yeah. So I think that started stirring the juices, and again, I was listening to a lot of cast albums. So it really,
Yeah. I'm getting a lot of comments here, not questions, but comments of people that saw Something Rotten 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. That show has so many repeat audience members.
Yeah.
Did you encounter them at stage doors? Why do you think that show in particular is caught on?
Well, I mean, I just think, in so many ways, it's just the gift that keeps on giving, because it's so well written, and it's so we worked so hard. I was amazed at the work that Casey and the authors did together, judiciously cutting, stuff. A lot of material cut. I think most actors would probably be upset about that, but I knew that we had so much good stuff that the stuff that wasn't as good wasn't going to shine as well. It was actually going to make itself even more known. Mm-hmm. So I always trusted that the leaner that show was, the tighter it was. We know musical comedy's got to go. Don't overstay your welcome, and don't let the audience get ahead of you. And, so they really mastered that. So I think when you see a show like that as an audience member, because it really is so tight that way, the first time, you're taking it all in, wow, certain things will stay with you or whatever. The second time, you're going to love all that stuff again, and you're going to hear a line that you didn't necessarily hear the first time for whatever reason. The third, it's just the gift that keeps on giving, I think, and again, if that group of actors that we had doing the show, there's nothing more joyous, than that live exchange of energy with an audience.
Of course.
And so that was something that we all we rode that wave. And so I'm sure that it must have felt great to be a part of that audience in the same way that it felt great for us to be playing with them, because it's that constant. So, so the fact that people would come back again and again is, I mean, what more could you ask? That's like the definitive, praise in that way. Because you go home and watch it on TV. I mean, you can watch some on YouTube, of course, whatever. But anyway, again, the idea that nothing, as we talked about earlier, nothing replaces live.
No.
There's nothing like that experience. And there's nothing, the shows that I've seen, many times, because something about it, just every time.
It's funny, The Producers was that show for me. I saw it in August of 2001 with the original, with you and Nathan and Matthew and Gary and Roger and everybody, Katie. And I would go back through the years to see the different casts as I've got older, as it, ran longer. What are some of the shows that you would like, that you've seen multiple times the way people see Something Wrong?
Well, let's see. The first show that I remember seeing multiple times was Sweeney, with the original production of Sweeney, 79, because I got to see it. And mind you, I was living in DC at the time, so we would come up to the city or whatever. So I saw it 3 times on Broadway. But then in the fall of 1980, and you can see how important this is to me, I remember this date, it began its national tour, which is the version that was recorded, that you can watch, with George Hearn, was recorded in Los Angeles. But that tour began at the Kennedy Center in DC. We were very blessed to get walked into the Opera House at the Kennedy Center, because we knew the head usher at the Opera House. It's totally illegal. It's not supposed to happen. It does a lot. It was so much of my education. I saw Sweeney once a week for 5 weeks at the Kennedy Center, because again, I didn't have to pay. I mean, I couldn't have.
Yeah.
One thing I did, I bought, because I wanted to sit in the 3rd row or something. But again, to be able to have an opportunity like that. So Sweeney I saw a lot. What else? I remember soon after I moved, not soon after I moved to the city, 1989, Grand Hotel, the original production of Grand Hotel. I love it. I just think it was one of the most beautiful, not the best book, not the best score, but everything together. I couldn't get enough of it. So I know I saw that at least 5 times during its run. Because I'm not, too crazy that way, but I know Into the Woods. Again, I had just moved to the city then as well. So the fact that I was living in New York City and could see a Broadway show, I had 8 options times a week when I could go, because I was working and waiting tables, and getting a lot of paper when I was waiting tables at Charlie's, a restaurant that used to exist on 45th Street. Currently just rubble right now while they decide what the hell's going to happen to it. But anyway, I would go plenty. But the fact that I could go back and see a show, was wonderful.
How many performances did you do in The Producers between when you were playing Franz and doing Max?
Well, I'm not sure what the Franz number would be, because I sort of know the Max number. And this is Broadway, 2nd National Tour, London, Vegas, crazy, as Max, over 1,400 performances. And then the first year of the run on Broadway, I was Franz, and I was understudying Nathan. And of course, the role was ridiculous. And, the poor guy was, went down. Believe me, I went down. Once I took over the role of Max, I was like, oh, yeah, well, of course you go down. You go down like a week, because your body just says time, and it's not the singing so much as the energy and the vocal, the yelling, But I did 70-something performances of Max the first year, you know, when Nathan would go down. So, but no, that was.
I hope that show, like, bought you a house or something.
It, you know, I mean, yes, it provided me. I can say, you know, it's the only time in my career that I made some stupid money, as far as, you know, being able to make money work. For the first time in my life, I could invest some money for later, retire, buy an apartment. Yes, all those things, you know. And I was old enough to know that that doesn't happen very often, and it really has never happened again for me. I mean, I've made some decent money when you're working in New York at home on the Broadway.
Yeah.
You can make some decent money. The rest of the time, we're going to work regionally. Those contracts are what they are. You are working, everyone is working for the same amount. There are no star salaries, you know,
Right.
most of the time. It just doesn't, you know, not that I'm even a star. I'm just saying that most of us work, you know, for what the given pay is at a given theater based on that equity contract. So yes, the producers enabled me, yes, was a big blessing just as far as that goes, giving me a little financial security as far as, you know, in this crazy business.
Was that show as fun to do as it looked, or was it work? Because you know, Max is not an easy, like you said, Max is not an easy role.
And you know, look, I maintain anything anybody has to do repetitively, 8 times a week, 5 days a week. Work is work is work, as far as that goes. It's your job, and ideally, you're doing that because you're trained and you do it well, or whatever that might be. So it's our responsibility to go out there, of course, 8 times a week and blah blah blah. We know that. Yes, it's a bear of a role. I never got bored. I never got tired of doing it. But I would get tired. I would go down maybe physically, you know, if I would get a cold or anything like that. And that was my body basically saying, again, you know, time out. And I would take the time and regroup. But again, no, there was nothing more joyous than doing that show, because that, again, as I talked about, the exchange of energy with the audience, and audiences love that show. That show is also tight as a drum. That show is smart and funny, and, you know, tells its story well, and celebrates, you know, again, the musical comedy in so many ways that those audiences especially respond to. So yeah, it was always a joy to do. It was gold.
Yeah. Brad, I will leave you with one more question, and that is, what are you most looking forward to when theaters reopen, when all of this is behind us?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yes, I'm professional, of course, as far as like working and my job and what I love, and
Sure.
you know, what I'm. Yes, I can't wait for that first night back. I can't wait. It'll be overwhelming just thinking about it. You know, it makes me emotional. Like after 9/11 when we went back, which is a whole thing. But anyway, but no, I'm looking forward to, you know, hugging my family and friends and you know, just getting back to our lives, I think, with a new respect for how important we are to each other, and especially in the theater, because that's what we do. We tell story. We all gather together to share an experience. Everybody backstage, everybody out front. We're all there for one reason, and so yeah, I look forward to being able to share the world again with each other in that way that just makes us better people, and hope that we'll come out of this, you know, maybe there's got to be some good that comes out of this, other than me making my mother's chicken soup and brisket recipe and nailing it.
I'm going to need that brisket recipe.
So good.
Brad, thank you for your time this afternoon. I so appreciate it.
David, take care.
Thank everybody for watching. We're back tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock with Kimber Lane Sprawl from Girl from the North Country. Have a good one, everybody. Take care.
Bye, buddy. Bye, Mom. Bye, Dad.